Hey guys, my name is Dice Rollin'. The ball is back, baby! Phantasm II was directed by Don Coscarelli, the creator of Phantasm, and was released on July 8th, 1988. It serves as the first sequel to the cult classic and continues the frightening adventures of Mike and Reggie against the Tall Man. It's hailed as the favorite in the franchise among a majority of the Phantasm fans, and upped the action, drama, and balls. This review was requested by Aries, as well as the rest of the franchise, which we shall get to in due time. So without further ado, this is my review of Phantasm II. The movie starts off with introducing us to a new character, Liz, played by Paula Irvine, who has nightmares and visions about terrible things that are going to happen. Her visions include Mike and Reggie as well as the Tall Man. Apparently, after the ending of the first film, Reggie stopped the Tall Man and his vertically challenged minions from kidnapping Mike by beating the undead shit out of them. Obviously, with such an infestation, the only solution is to blow it all to hell. Liz shares a sort of psychic link with Mike, which explains how she saw what happened. Fearing impending doom in the shape of a tall man, she calls out to Mike for help. So Mike, who has spent a number of years in a psych ward, gets out to find Liz. I just have one problem with this, and I'm afraid it's gonna be a bit of a reoccurring thing. That's not Mike! According to Coscarelli, when he was working on getting this film made, he wanted the original cast to reprise their roles, including a Michael Baldwin. But Universal Studios made him recast the character of Mike because they wanted a working actor. And I know I'm not in the minority when I say I don't like it. Something else Universal demanded be included were some inner monologue moments, just in case you couldn't process what was going on yourself. Anyway, this is Mike 2.0, played by James Lee Gross. And immediately upon lying his way out of the psychiatric ward, he goes to the cemetery to dig up some evidence. Somehow, Reggie doesn't seem surprised when he finds him there.
Now that's the third one I dug up. Now, does that strike you a little strange, Riggs?
Actually, it does. How the hell did you, one teenager, dig up 3 graves in one night without collapsing from exhaustion? Reggie still doesn't seem to believe Mike, though. That is, until the tall man blows his whole damn house up. And there goes Reggie's family, that we never met. Guys, I'm gonna miss them. This funeral is brought to you by the Men in Black. Now, the two of them set off to find the tall man and finish what they started 7 years ago. But first, it's time to raid an Ace Hardware store.
He's gotta work at close range.
There you go. Take it from Ash, a chainsaw is an excellent tool against the undead hordes.
Shop smart, shop S-smart.
Also taking a page from Ash's Necronomicon, Reggie modifies some guns to create the infamous quadruple barrel shotgun. Truly, this teaches some valuable life lessons. If you ever find yourself under attack from hideous undead minions, you need to channel Martha Stewart and Tim Allen immediately. So, in the span of 7 years, did Reggie suddenly become rich? Because I know an ice cream man would not be able to cover all that. Having their very own arsenal, Reggie and Mike follow the path of destruction the Tall Man and his minions created. In one of the dead towns, they come across a mortuary that has at least 2 things of interest: a disappearing dead girl and... oh god!
It's not a tumor.
This is just an illusion, however, because apparently the tall man borrowed some tricks from Freddy Krueger. The real Liz is elsewhere, attending her grandfather's funeral with her grandmother. Let me see. Creepy old house used as a mortuary? Check. Obviously evil henchmen who are obvious? Check. Foreboding priest who knows some shit is going down? Yeah, check. I think I've spotted a pattern in the towns the tall man likes. After the services, Father Myers, played by Kenneth Tigar, decides to make sure that Grandpa's dead. She'll be fine. Meanwhile, Liz decided to find a less creepy place to hang out, in the mausoleum that's conveniently attached to the house. But there are no shortages of odd happenings here, as she...
Graveside service is about to begin.
God damn it, again with this shit. So that night, Father Myers has either had 1 too many shots of whiskey, or Grandpa's not happy about the Van Helsing treatment during his services. Yeah, that's a bitch, waking up to find the person in bed next to you is dead. No prior experience on my part here. And I guess Liz is fucking deaf because she didn't hear any of her grandmother's screams of mortal fear. While Reggie and Mike are on the road, Mike wakes up from his nap to find that Reggie has picked up the dead chick from the morgue. Only she's not dead. Her name is Alchemy. I don't know. And she's played by Samantha Phillips. Reggie is more than a little excited to have a woman joining their sausage fest of a road trip they've been on for the past 6 months. But Mike doesn't think it's such a great idea to have the not dead girl around. Can't say I blame him. Ultimately, Reggie persuades Mike that Alchemy is probably safer with them. And conveniently enough, she's headed to the same town they are. So it works. Liz wakes up to find her grandmother's gone, and apparently one of the tall man's many talents includes being able to telepathically convey a ransom note, with just a pin dipped in mustard. So Liz goes to the mortuary to rescue her grandmother. At the same time, Reggie, Mike, and Kemi arrive at the bed and breakfast her uncle owns, only to find that it's abandoned. Clearly, the tall man works fucking quick, because so is nearly every other part of Perigord. Don't get me wrong, I get it. Desolation in his wake, yada yada yada. But wasn't it just the other day that this town actually looked lived in?
I'm gonna go take a look around, okay?
Yeah, you go do that, girl whom was previously seen dead and is supposed to be under our protection. It's decided that a boarded up B&B is still a B&B. So they set up camp for the night, taking inspiration from Kevin McAllister. Going back to my previous statement, Reggie and Mike leave Kemi to find Liz, who has found a way into the mortuary. She witnesses some of the odd goings-on that take place here. And, shock and horror, it's nothing like your average Undertaker business. I do have to say, it's rather nice to see the tall man's small business has expanded and he's gotten more help. Hashtag support your local tall man. By the way, Father Mayers is skulking around the mortuary too. He gets the chance to meet the tall man himself, and it's kind of this weird holy man versus evil representation of death scene. And we've got more balls! By that I mean in the previous Phantasm movie we had 1. In this one we have 3. And the tall man has upgraded some of their features, which we see on display when the priest bites it. And plot twist, Liz's grandmother has been dwarficized. On the bright side though, on her way out, she runs into Mike. What kind of Twilight level romance is this? Actually, I take that back. Liz has far more personality than Bella. Mike doesn't sparkle, and Reggie's got a quadruple barrel sawed-off shotgun. But it does still come across as one of those romances for the sake of romance things. I blame Universal Studios. Now that Liz and Mike have finally, and for the first time, linked up in person, the 3 of them go back to the bed and breakfast. The plan is to wait until morning and book it out of Perigord. So they all go upstairs and... Hey, you're supposed to be sleeping. What freaky shit is this? Let me just sum this all up for you. Mike and Liz can astral fuck, which technically means it's safe sex, and Alchemy has a bald fetish, which works out remarkably in Reggie's favor. Or not, depending on how you look at it. During all of this, there's a different bang.
It's like Kimmy's uncle had a cat or a dog or something.
I'm deducting a point from my final rating for that. During this distraction, the tall man once again lurks outside the window just to jump scare us and kidnap Liz. And again, Mike and Reggie abandon Alchemy in favor of going after Liz. This is the car chase portion of the film, but this time it's the CUDA that bites the dust. Mike survives and pulls Reggie from the wreckage in time to avoid being blown to fuck. And speaking of death by flames, Liz faces near certain doom by way of crematory oven. I see what you did there. That's cute. Now, to Liz's credit, she does save her own damn self and manages to get a nutshot in on the Undertaker minion before he eats Ash. Reggie and Ash split up to search the mortuary for Liz. Mike finds her in time for them both to run from the other Undertaker. And an orb of death! What's really convenient is the orb ends up killing the Undertaker. The tall man should really look into some better help. Meanwhile, Reggie engages in a chainsaw fight with one of those gas mask wearing goons. This is where he proves that size doesn't matter. This movie has way more ball damage than the first one. Now, this is the point where shit reaches another level of batshit, so stick with me. Mike takes the orb that had embedded itself in the Undertaker's hand. Because it's still attached to the hand, it's rendered harmless.
Here, I'll trade you.
Nah, you know what, Mike? How about you carry the blindfolded ball of death, and I wield the flamethrower? Mike then uses it as a key to open the mysterious door he and Reggie found earlier. And wouldn't you know it, it's another white room with barrel dwarves and a tuning fork portal. The tall man shows up to knock Mike into another dimension and distract Reggie so he can try to kill Liz. But our heroes turn the tables on the tall man by using his own ball against him, which raises some questions for me. We're led to believe that the tall man is in control of these orbs, right? So while they don't differentiate between people who work for the tall man and potential targets, shouldn't they at least recognize him? Whatever. Continue, there's some squeezy cheese gore happening. Alas, while the tall man is wounded, he is not defeated. This also reveals a different problem. Yeah, I don't know what that is. But seriously, these movies keep amping up the what the fuck factor in the climaxes. Last time they showed us that the tall man is actually from another planet. This time there's some hentai shit coming out of his head. I don't know. Liz and Reggie work together to melt the tall man from within using some acid-laced embalming goo. As a final touch, Reggie sets fire to, well, everything. Always a sound option. Alchemy shows up in a hearse she found, and they all drive away alive and feeling like winners. Except I think we know at this point that Mr. Coscarelli doesn't like giving us happy, clean-cut endings. Plot twist: Alchemy is undead, attacks Reggie, and dumps his ass on the side of the road. The hearse drives off with Mike and Liz, who rationalize that this too must be a nightmare, just like last time.
It's a dream.
It's only a dream.
No, it's not.
And with that, the credits roll, with the audience left once again with no concept of what the hell just happened. So at least it's on brand. Now to pick the movie apart. And given how a majority of people hold this one up against my final rating, you're not gonna like it. Let's start off on a good note, no pun intended, by talking about the soundtrack. On par with the original Phantasm, the score has an excellent balance of eeriness and tension, and when needed, fast-paced action. I think in Phantasm II, the key theme was refined a bit. Polished, if you will. I have no complaints with any of the music throughout. It kept what we expect for a Phantasm vibe while refreshing it, and making it more distinct from the original. So props to Christopher L. Stone and Fred Myrow for that. The acting is better here too. Reiterating what I said in my Phantasm review, it wasn't excruciating to begin with, but improvements had been made. They have some more acting experience under their belts now, so it's not so rough around the edges. I mean, even Reggie improved. He brought the Reggie we knew back and even added a certain level of badass to him. Still not Oscar-worthy though, but that's okay. Again, I have no complaints here. Except for the obvious. For as much shit as I give this version of Mike, I can't place the blame on James Lee Gross. He was playing an established character and as the more grown-up Mike. There are times where his performance felt a bit stiff. Would I still have preferred A. Michael Baldwin over him? Yes, but James did alright. Liz could easily have ended up as the love interest stereotype, which I know I complain about a lot. But Paula added depth to the character and made her memorable. I wanted to see her kick ass, and she did. While the same can't be said for Alchemy, Samantha did make her memorable as well. Plus, she was able to convey evil Alchemy well. She didn't have a hell of a lot of character development, but I can tell she was having fun with it. And what can I say about Angus that I and everyone else hasn't already? Beautiful. As far as the plot goes, I always felt this one was kind of empty the first few times I watched it, like it was lacking something. It takes a lot of elements from Phantasm and just retells them to us. The big twist is exactly what we already knew. At the same time, there are some new things thrown in to at least make it more interesting. It's fun, and it has its own style that works pretty well with the rest of the Phantasm franchise. The practical and special effects are pretty solid. A lot of old tricks were used, and it pays off. Aside from the obvious pulling back a bit on the blood and gore aspect, I can't say I dislike any of it. A majority of what we see is practical, and I always appreciate that. The evil dwarves were also given a bit of an upgrade, allowing us to be able to see their hideously deformed faces for the first time. This was a much bigger production, and I know a higher budget helped in every aspect. It certainly helped the locations with the different settings that Mike and Reggie traveled to. I rather like all that, honestly. Does that make this a masterpiece that surpasses Phantasm? No. It's arguably better than the original in some aspects, but it's not meant to replace it. It's a sequel, so it's meant to continue the story while answering some questions and raising the stakes. I feel like it fell a bit flat on answering some questions that the audience has about the characters and the world they live in. However, it does amp things up a bit, because of Universal's heavy-handed involvement in the making of the film. It takes the gruff, bizarre, and psychological nature of the Phantasm universe and tones it down a bit. It makes the whole premise more Hollywood and easier for the viewer to digest. And that's not what Phantasm is about. Phantasm is a wild, nonsensical ride through some pretty dark themes while still keeping a twisted sense of humor. Phantasm II didn't completely miss the mark on that. It just polished it a little too much. So overall, Phantasm II is a good follow-up to its predecessor. So with all that being said, I'm giving Phantasm II 5 out of 10 bloody thumbs up. For a big budget sequel that was overseen by Universal Studios, it could have been a lot worse. Like I said, it's a solid continuation of the Phantasm story. I know a lot of people rate this movie a lot higher than I did, and that's good. The original can be something of an acquired taste in cult classics, while Phantasm II just appeals to people more. I still like it, even with my gripes. And I would recommend it to people who like a good mix of action and horror. Any 80s horror fan would enjoy this as well, and anyone who has an appreciation for Angus Scrim. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like to let me know. And don't forget to leave a comment down below telling me what you think of this movie. And if you have any suggestions for horror movies you'd like to see me review in the future. Also, don't forget to share this video to help the channel grow, and subscribe for more videos and more Phantasm like this. See you later.
It's only a dream.
No, it's not.